I've been meaning to record my work for a while and was only able to start doing that now. I decided to record videos as a tool for future artists. I know how helpful those videos can be. Before I even started working on my own graphic novel, I myself watched a lot of these videos from other comic book artists, inkers, colorists. I wanted to make my book so bad, but I was really scared to do it because I'd been away from the comic book world for so long and I didn't even know where to begin. Really. All of those videos I watched were so helpful to me that I feel like this is my only way of giving back. So, I made a graphic novel called Bloody Perks, which is basically the story of a vegan who becomes a vampire. Volume 1 of Bloody Perks is called The Hunger, and it's for sale now. Volume 2 of Bloody Perks is called The Waltz. It's currently in the works, and I divided it into 4 chapters, which I'll explain why. Chapter 1 of The Waltz was successfully backed on Kickstarter in 2021. Chapter 2 will also be on Kickstarter hopefully soon. That's the one that I'm working on right now. Bloody Perks Volume 1 had a total of something like 150 something pages. I first wrote that graphic novel as a feature film, and after working on a bunch of TV shows, I thought it would be much better, a lot cooler, to expand the story, and I ended up spreading it into 10 episodes. I made a TV Bible and everything, but then 2 years later, in 2020, everybody knows what happened, and before it happened, I felt like the world was about to stop. For some reason, I had this instinct. I thought I'm gonna be out of work, so I should do something productive and creative. I picked up the first episode of that TV show and turned it into a comic book. Bloody Perks Volume 1 would be the equivalent of Bloody Perks Episode 1, which is called The Hunger. Bloody Perks Volume 2 would be the equivalent of Bloody Perks Episode 2, The Waltz. It ended up taking me 5 months to finish Volume 1 completely, from script to sketch to inks to coloring to lettering, which is mediocre to say the least because I didn't hire anybody amazing to do my lettering. I just basically used the fonts from the script. Yeah, but it took me about 5 months to complete the whole thing. And by the time I was done, everything was still on lockdown. Nothing was open. I couldn't even throw any parties. I couldn't go to any conventions. I couldn't visit any comic book shops. And luckily, Kickstarter was already a thing. And I was able to send a bunch of graphic novels to a bunch of people who backed the campaign. So the first campaign ended up being successful. I don't even know how, but it did. And it was really cool because a bunch of backers started asking me about a sequel. And I thought, why the heck not? So I went back to the script and I started working on Bloody Perks The Waltz, which was the second episode of the TV show. So basically I started adapting the whole thing and changed a bunch of things because the episode was a little different from what the comic book ended up being as a script. And when I was done with the script, it ended up being another 150 something pages graphic novel, right? So I had to separate the second volume into 4 chapters because I knew there was no way in hell that I was going to be able to work on an entire volume at once with work to do and bills to pay. And after about a month of working on that script, I had it ready, and all of a sudden I found myself in this huge gig for Universal Pictures, so I couldn't do anything about it. Good thing I had a great friend in Brazil who I really admired as an artist, and I ended up hiring him to illustrate chapter 1. His name is Renato Zequeto, and he is really one of the most amazing artists I know. But his thing really was never comics. His thing really was always animation. That's what he really likes doing. And here's the kicker. When I thought about drawing the first volume of the graphic novel, The Hunger, I gave myself so many strict rules, right? In my mind, the real world should feel frail, monotonous, and boring, very square. Because to me, that's who the main character was. The pages should have nothing but rectangular and square panels. The artwork should be clean, with perfect lines and no shadows, and the colors should be sort of pastel, baby colors, almost animation like. In a way, the book should feel like it's always daytime, it's always happy go lucky, um, even with the not so lucky parts of the story that the character goes through, it should feel light, like a light comedy, almost like a sitcom. Until, of course, the main character, who's a serious vegan, becomes a vampire. Then everything changes completely. And from daytime, it all goes nighttime. And all of the rules change accordingly. It's not like the rules are less strict. They should just adapt to all of the characters' changes. The panels should become more emotional, if that's even possible. They should morph and change according to each occasion that the character goes through. The artwork should become more underground. I hate to use the word, but punk, 70s punk, dark, gritty, full of shadows. And the colors should become more muted and complementary. So in the night scenes, for instance, I could only use four colors or less. And trust me, I follow those rules to the goddamn dot. Needless to say, when Renato jumped on board to draw chapter 1, he didn't really know that I had any rules or anything. He just saw the book and he loved what I did, and he thought he couldn't do it, and I knew he could. I knew he could even do better. But once he found out about all the rules that I had, and once I started imposing those rules on him, he felt a little claustrophobic, and he tried to break all of my rules at once. And after we both butt heads like mountain goats for so long like idiots, we finally decided to compromise. He told me he was going to try to follow my rules until he couldn't. And granted, he did follow them most of the time. The funny thing is that I found out that once I decided to quit forcing him to see things my way and do things my way, he came up with some genius strokes that allowed me to see new possibilities. And I was able to come up with new ideas from old concepts, which I'll explain later, or at least try to explain in some future episodes by showing him my work. Unfortunately, now Renato is also very busy, so he's not going to be able to keep doing the book. And I also feel like I have to stop looking for excuses and just finish this damn thing myself. So here I am, and on the next episode, I'll be sketching page 7 of the waltz. No more excuses, and let's get sketching. For information on the graphic novel or me, visit my website. Talk to you later.